in this problem here, you're going to be identifying properties to solve a linear equation. And keep in mind that all you're really doing is identifying. You're not solving the equation. You're just identifying what they used to solve the equation. Meaning, they gave you an equation, you can see here, and they actually did all the steps and they got an answer. So all the steps are done. All you have to do is justify. So give me the reasons. What did they actually do to solve it? So you're basically going to be identifying things like distributive property, addition property of equality, subtraction property of equality, division property of equality, and multiplication property of equality. So you're going to identify those things. And you're also going to be explaining if when they simplify, things like that. So and this is how you approach it. So in the first step, you got to look here. In this step here, how did they get from this step to the next step? So you got to ask yourself, what did they do to get to the next step? And whatever the step they use, you're going to put that reason here. And what I do is I look at the previous step and compare it to the next step and say what looks different. And like for example, in this problem, when I look at this example, I can see we have times 2 in the second step, which means they took the original and they multiplied both sides by 2. Anytime you do the same thing to both sides, whether it's adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing, those are properties of equality. You have to do those things to the same side, to both sides, in order to balance the equation. So in this case, they multiplied both sides by 2, therefore, it's a multiplication property of equality. So keep that in mind. Anytime they do the same exact thing to both sides, you know it's going to be one of the properties of equality. Alright, next step. So after they multiply both sides by 2, what did they do to get to the next step? And you can see, like on the right side of the equation, they got 18. How did they get 18? Well, they just multiplied 9 times 2. So this is called simplifying. So I would choose the step here, simplifying. And on the left side, you could also see similar reasoning. When they multiplied by 2, 2 times u plus 23 over 2, the 2's reduced to 1 over 1. So that's why they were left with only u plus 23. To get from here to the next step, you can see that what looks different is that you have minus 23 on both sides. So you started with 18 and now you have 18 minus 23. On the left side you had u plus 23, and then the next step you have u plus 23 minus 23. So you can see the minus 23 is new to both sides. Since they did the same thing to both sides by subtracting 23, you know that's a property of equality, which in this case would be subtraction property of equality. Next step, you can see that how did they get just u? Well, they did 23 minus 23. That was gone. That's a 0 pair. And they did 18 minus 23 on the right side, and they got negative 5. So anytime they actually combine the terms together, that's called simplifying. So I would pick simplifying. And you know, you're going to use simplifying directly after one of the properties of equality. You know, the next step is going to be simplifying, because you have to simplify in order to accomplish that step. And that's it for that problem. Here's another example. In this problem, they started off with negative 3, and then in parentheses, it was being multiplied with 5w minus 2 equal to 36. In the next step, I noticed that on the right side of the equation, the 36 stayed exactly the same. On the left side, that's the only thing that changed. And then you can see that they got negative 15 by multiplying negative 3 times 5. And they got positive 6 by multiplying negative 3 times negative 2. That's how we got negative 15 plus 6. So if you're doing that, you're multiplying both terms, in this case, inside the parentheses by the outer number. This is called distributive property. Next step, I can see that everything looks the same, except now you can see I have minus 6 on both sides. So on the left side, we started with two terms, right? Negative 15w plus 6. And then in the next step, you got negative 15w plus 6 minus 6. So it's the third term is new. And then on the right side, we started with 36. And then the next step, we have 36 minus 6. So since they subtracted 6 to both sides, that's subtraction property of equality. So I would choose subtraction property of equality. Always keeping in mind, properties of equality means they did it to both sides. The same thing to both sides. And then directly after your property of equality, we know the next step has to be simplifying. Like for example, 36 minus 6, they have to combine those two to get 30. And then on the left side, the 6 minus 6, they combine those to make a 0 pair. And that's why we were only left with negative 15w. So for this one, it's called simplifying. Next step, I can see that on the right side of the equation we have 30. In the next step we have divided by negative 15. Same thing on the left side. We started with negative 15w and they also divided that by negative 15. So since they divided both sides by negative 15, that would be a division property of equality. And then directly after that, we know simplifying is next, right? To get to negative 2, they had to do 30 divided by negative 15 to get negative 2. And on the left side, they had to do negative 15 divided by negative 15 to get 1w. So that one will be simplifying, and that's it.